Hey, this is John.
And it's Eric.
Zach.
Walt.
Court. And Joe.
Oh. All right, it's What If Geeks. We're back again. We got a full house of a lot of people that don't want to be here. So it's the Sunday before Christmas, so everyone's got family in, and Eric brought his whole family here to hang out at the studio.
Oh, no, this is only half.
Garage.
It's only half.
Yeah. Wouldn't be the first time we had a bunch of your family on. That's cool. So we figured we'll do a review of The Irishman first, and then later on we're going to record another episode talking about Mandalorian and shit like that. All right, so anyone rough take on The Irishman? Eric, give us a quick lowdown on what The Irishman was.
So recap of the show. So this is American crime mobster film. Martin Scorsese directed, who has done, well, a bunch of these, right? The general scheme of this movie is that it starts out in the 1950s, and there's this truck driver named Frank Sheeran, who's a real guy. This is based on a real story, who is an Irishman that works with the Italian mobsters, and ends up in a job. And he's driving a truck at first, and he's doing some shady stuff with losing cargo, I guess is the best way to put it, right?
Yeah.
But eventually he makes his way up to a hitman and then sort of a teamster leader. I mean, that's general progression. We'll talk about the specifics, but this did have a very limited theatrical release on November 1st. Just a few theaters. It was really small. It netted pretty well considering. But then it went to streaming, which is sort of new. So I think in the first week they had about 27 million Netflix subscribers watch this. Holy shit.
So you guys are going to hear somebody getting really excited about The Irishman. That's Bama the Bulldog. So we've officially got a mascot right now. She's here visiting for Christmas.
She's a big fan of ambiguously aged gangsters.
Yeah.
So this released on November 27th on Netflix. Huge following since, I guess. Critic reviews were pretty well off the charts, I think, for this one. It was really positive. But then when the user reviews came around, it was a very mixed bag.
Yeah.
Scorsese can do no wrong.
Yeah, so I guess...
Well, Scorsese most famous for his feud with Marvel.
Yeah, with Marvel. Yeah, definitely. And one of the big complaints across the thing was the running time. It was 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
3 hours and 29 minutes. Just a hair shy of 3.5 hours, I guess. But it was pretty long. And then it had an R rating. It's mostly for violence and how much shit talking they do, basically. Killing and shit talking. So if you're into that kind of R rating, come and get it. So this was based on the 2000 book, I Heard You Paint Houses. So this was actually written by a former homicide prosecutor who went and interviewed Frank Sheeran way after the fact and sort of got his take on it. Now, he was probably 70-ish, maybe older when he did this interview. So who knows if it was truthful
he was in a
or
hospice,
not.
wasn't he?
Yeah. Who knows if it was fully truthful or not? And on top of that, there's the embellishment of it being a Scorsese movie, and so and a book on top of that too.
Right.
So
multiple filters.
Yeah, definitely multiple filters. But anyway, so eventually Sheeran becomes a hitman. That's the whole point of the thing, and he's going to kill somebody, which we'll talk about in a minute. And that's the one part of this that may not be a real truth. Yeah. It may be a real stretch, and nobody really knows for sure. But so Martin Scorsese did this. Of course, he did Goodfellas, Casino, Mean Streets, Taxi Driver. He did a million things. If there's anything he's good at, it's gangster movies for this period, right? So he can't do wrong there, really. So we have in this De Niro as the main character, I guess, Frank Sheeran. We have Pacino, who plays Jimmy Hoffa. We have Joe Pesci, who plays Russell Bufalino, who's one of the crime family leaders. Ray Romano, who plays, I think he was the cousin?
Yeah.
Cousin of Bufalino, who's a lawyer, which is the way that Sheeran and Bufalino get introduced in the beginning of the movie is because of that lawyer. Anna Paquin in it, and she plays is it the niece? I think she's the niece.
She's the
she's the daughter. She's the daughter of the
Yeah.
Irishman. That's right. Yeah. That's right. And then Harvey Keitel as Angelo Bruno. So he's disconnected, but I guess part of the story gangster in this, basically. Okay, so no spoilers. Don't say any spoilers. What were your
Why
opinions?
are you looking at me? Shit.
No, I'm looking at everybody. This is the way we always do this. So the first
few minutes is
the first few
spoiler-free.
minutes of discussion here is do not say a spoiler. But what's your opinion on this movie? What's your take?
I thought it was a good movie. Definitely ran a little bit long, but you got great chemistry between these actors who have been in
Bama,
countless
well,
films
you
together.
really have an opinion. I'm sorry.
you're
Bama,
all
what is
good.
your opinion? What do you
Her
want?
opinion is
I think she said it ran over a little long. Isn't that what that means?
Yeah.
Real long.
It's over.
But good
Exactly.
character development. They took their time with it, and it
Yeah.
did. It was
Fucking
real
took their
lengthy,
time
but
with it is no lie.
I really wonder, how much of that stuff was even just improvised because these
A lot
people
of
have acted together so many times.
A lot of it was conjecture. I mean,
Some of them have.
Yeah, well,
So
I mean, you've
you
got 'em-
assume when you see a Scorsese movie, Pacino must have been in a Scorsese movie, right? No, this is the first movie he's ever done with
Are you
Scorsese.
serious?
Yes.
Yep,
Well,
yeah,
he's
first
been in
one.
other movies with
De Niro.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
like
with
they
the other
did
actors.
Heat
Yeah.
and whatever.
Being
Yeah,
the most
but
famous.
not
Yeah.
Scorsese directed.
Nope, not
Correct.
Scorsese directed. He's
Yep.
never done a Scorsese movie. Yep. So I'm going to drop this a little early, but they do a round table after the credits where it's Scorsese, Pacino, Pesci, De Niro.
And what that puts it at the 4-hour mark.
Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But so they do a thing where they talk, and that this actually comes up. Pacino's like, "How the hell have we never done a movie?" And Scorsese's like, "I don't know. It's amazing, But it's a real thing. It happened, I guess. So, John, what were your general opinions?
I liked it. It ran long.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, overall, I guess I could just get it right out there and say it. I was laughing about the whole the Marvel thing, right? He basically bitched that
Yeah.
Marvel movies aren't real movies. It wasn't real cinema, and to a degree, I got what he was trying to say, but he opened up a shitstorm of shit with that, right? And then I watched this movie, and I was like, I see you gunning for another Goodfellas, Godfather kind of thing, and you fell short of Avengers.
Yeah.
So, I'm like,
this
you
is
kind of
funny.
put your foot in your mouth right there,
Sorry, I'm gonna jump in, Zach, but he made that comment about Marvel movies being a roller coaster, right? And then what he did was like the spinning cups at the state fair or something. It was really weird. It was like really slow build up, like
So overall, I liked it. I just immediately saw where I could have shaved off about 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah, well, yeah.
There was some of it, and we can get into that later on in the spoiler shit.
So here's my thing. I appreciate the whole theme park analogy, but I don't think that this type of film and a Marvel film should even really be compared in that way.
I would agree.
Well, no, probably not.
Different genres,
completely different purposes. The pacing is obviously going to be different between a CGI based action film. Like a Marvel universe film.
It's like comparing an oil paint to a CGI.
Exactly. It's a different sort of beast. They both happen to be in a film medium, but really they have different intents and different audiences. Was it long? Yes. A little bit for me as well.
Yeah.
It did take me, 2 times of watching to
He
get
fell
through
asleep.
Well, that's no reflection of how good the movie was, because I'll fall asleep in movies I really do enjoy. That's just a personal issue for me. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. I appreciate, because he did make the comment about the roller coaster.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that he makes films that he would want to be associated with a theme park at all. I think his whole thing is to do he's in a different lane, so to speak.
Yeah, he's trying to tell a story.
He is, but
Theme park versus museum.
so for me, the build-up was versus museum. That's probably right.
Yeah,
the build-up
that's
was
the best analogy
insanely slow, and you had a moment where it was like, "Oh shit!"
What is she doing over there?
I'm not sure. And
She's
then
like, "Are you trying to record something?"
it was
What's this
over.
shit?
It was over like 5 seconds later, and there wasn't like a gradual come. It was just like done, and we're gonna do slow again for the next 45 minutes until something happens. So,
Which I can appreciate. I
felt like I talked about with these guys, but there was a few scenes where I felt like, why are we doing this? Like when they're on the road trip and the women are like wanting to smoke or whatever, and then they get like, what was the whole point of all that?
Character development.
but they do that.
Humanize these people who are supposed to be vicious killers.
It's character development.
I guess.
I mean, there's exposition, right? And then there's
It's like,
Yeah.
they're
I got
vicious
all
killers,
that,
but they're
yeah.
regular
But I
people
didn't-
too.
I'm not sure I got anything out of that, really. Like,
I mean, I would agree. I think maybe it was a little bit of a flop on what he was trying to do. I think I see what he was trying to do, but it kind of failed.
Yeah,
Because
I could see the like trying to put you in a real situation where you like hit a roadside and this thing could happen.
Let Walt give his initial, and then we'll just jump into the spoilers since we're already halfway there.
Go ahead, Walt. What were your general no spoilers feelings on this movie?
Well, I enjoyed it overall. It was a little slow on the character development. He took his time with that, and some of it probably was pointless. And they probably could have shaved a good amount of time off of there. But he was trying to, what he was trying to do was the character development, and he may have fallen a little bit short on that. But, that's Scorsese. He's gonna take his time with it. And,
I didn't necessarily. I mean, the runtime was a little long. I'll give that, but that wasn't necessarily the biggest issue to me because how many series do we sit there and binge watch 4 or 5 hours of a series in a given night?
Okay.
Not necessarily ones that even have that.
I watched
The Godfather
7 hours of The Witcher last
So
night.
hold on though. I had this argument with somebody. If you watch a series episodic, right, you get the episodic inside an hour build up and something happens and then there's a there's a cliffhanger or whatever into the next episode.
Yes.
This movie wasn't like that. It was like a whole hour of build up to some tiny moment and then a quick fall and another hour of build up into a tiny moment.
I would agree that 9 times out of 10 you get the contained within one episode that story.
Yeah.
However,
kind of came in
it's
waves.
not unprecedented to not have that. So I would point
it's
to
not.
the episode of Breaking Bad
Yep.
where they're just sitting in the lab and there's a fly flying around.
Okay, side note, by the way, when he put me through this series, he asked, could we skip that episode? Fucking drill a hole in his bone. And I said, fuck no, let's get some character development.
Look, I'm with you,
I
and
want to get the whole thing.
we do a weekly Mandalorian review,
It's a great
and
episode.
that is one that has like 5 or 6 different things building up over multiple episodes, and you almost forget about it. But this isn't an episodic delivery; it's a movie.
Sure,
Yeah.
and everything's on a spectrum, right? So we like to speak in absolutes, but obviously there's a spectrum between character development and plot development, right?
Right.
And this tends to be more on the side of let's develop the characters, let's give you an atmosphere.
And there's something also to be said for pacing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like if it gets too slow, I mean, you lose people.
True.
I feel
Yeah,
like
I
they really
appreciate that.
banked a lot on the names that are in the movie and it being a Scorsese film. And instead of using that CGI shit, I would have rather seen maybe some flashbacks with different actors who maybe played the younger versions of these people, and you get the fresh blood.
So I'm gonna stop you there because Scorsese covered that in the after credit thing. You know what he said? He said in Godfather we did that where Marlon Brando was the guy, and then the younger version was played by De Niro, right? And he said something about there being like sort of a discontinuity because it is a different person. Even if you're invested, you can't necessarily buy into that. Like, oh, these guys are only.
I think it's
So now for what I said about cutting shit short, I wasn't even talking about any of that. Maybe a scene or two.
You were talking
here or
about the
there,
car
right?
ride.
No. I mean, even that, like we
It's a
said,
MacGuffin.
it's okay. It's there. It's it helps humanize these characters a little bit, right? I was talking about if you're watching, go back and watch. Oh, don't, because that's another 3.5 hours you can't get back. You like it. I liked it. All right, I'll watch it again eventually after I catch up with everything else I got to watch. Holy shit, I'm so far behind. But if you watch it, you'll see these shots he takes, right? When, just from a directorial standpoint, when you take this like lingering shot on a person sitting in a chair, you as the audience are like, okay, this is where it should cut. And then it's still there for another 5 seconds.
I did
And you're
notice
like-
that. I thought
Like,
it was
and there's
wonderful.
quite a few of those
Right.
that,
Wait for it. Wait
yeah,
for it.
you're like,
there's some artistic self-indulgence there, right?
yes,
That doesn't
a
serve
little
the story.
too self-indulgent.
Sure.
And again, I love Scorsese. I love a lot of the old school shit that he did. But I think there's a point where sometimes we're getting a little bit too full of ourselves.
Yeah, don't
And this is
rely on
coming from
the
someone
much.
who hosts a podcast and says, "Listen to me."
I can see
Okay,
it.
so
I can see it.
You're
Yep.
right.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
And again, watch the after credit scenes. He addresses it a little in saying that there was some purposeful intent for this. Was like, let's get people to reflect on the sort of old moment, like the way things used to be or
Sure.
whatever, and like draw it out a minute because then that'll make you think about it.
we need to have our cheers moment. You know, Norm just walked in the bar. Paul's here.
Can I go back 1 second, Eric,
Yeah,
to the comment
yeah.
you made about having different actors portray the same character? I think it's doubly difficult when you're doing an adult at two different adult stages of their life.
Yeah.
It's easier to suspend the disbelief, I
For a
think,
child,
when you're
sure.
doing a
Yeah,
child
yeah,
versus an
Yeah.
adult.
That's
Definitely.
true. That's
Yeah.
very true. That's very true.
I did think they did a good job with the aging thing.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
It was a
They
little
did.
creepy.
What-
Joe, what did you
Right.
think on that?
The fact that they did the CGI and then they also did the practical effects later on, that was like a little jarring. You know, like when you see CGI de-aged De Niro and Pesci, and then you see like Pesci with the prosthetics to make him look much older, I was like, wait, okay, hang on. How
Yeah,
old is Joe
so-
Pesci again? I'm
Right,
doing
right.
math.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
I had that same sense. I'm like, what? I was thinking, which of these sort of
Yeah.
iterations
Which
do
is
they
the real-
actually look
So-
closest to
so-
in real life? Did you find yourself?
yeah,
Again,
I was
if-
like,
if-
holy shit, did he really age that much?
Yeah, if you
haven't seen the guy in a
if
while.
you
I don't
watch
know.
the after credits sit down, they talk about this. So Pacino, you never saw his real face the entire movie, not
Okay.
a single scene. He was de-aged the entire time.
Right.
And he looked like a fucking troll.
So Pesci and De Niro are only so for that little short part of their lifespan where they're sort of in the or about to get arrested, go to the prison and be the old man in the. That was the only time they weren't de-aged or they didn't have prosthetics.
Okay, so now
And then so the whole end of the movie, they were both prosthetics.
So Eric, you were talking about earlier how they did not want to utilize the techniques that are most effective at mapping
Yeah.
somebody's face, and
Yeah.
instead came up with a whole
They
other
did, yeah.
shebang. And I think that's maybe where it was a little bit more noticeable for me because you have all this, beautiful timepiecing of the era, and you got all these old cars and stuff, and then you got just this video game cutscene level fucking plasticky looking skin sitting in the back of a beautiful car. It's like,
So
why did you do this? They're all professionals. They're all
Yeah.
good actors. Why couldn't they just do it the way that is most effective?
well, so this was a thing
The end
for
product should be.
this was a thing for Scorsese though. He didn't want to change actors, and he didn't want to do any like fake ass green tennis ball.
You didn't want to do any
The
fake
motion
lights on
capture
the
dots,
face,
the
that's
motion
all based
capture,
on people's faces
like the
being
shit they
fake.
did for Avatar. He did not
Right,
want to
right,
do
right.
that.
Gotcha.
So when he thought about doing this movie almost a decade ago, he said, "If you don't have the technology to skip all these things I don't want, then we'll do it later." And so they did it later. And so
Okay, yeah, but if
he's
you
the
watch a
celiac
few
of
scenes
green
of this
screen.
movie, I'd believe more of the blue fucking things in Avatar than I did some
Yeah.
of
Well,
the
so-
They look more realistic than some
That's
of
true.
the.
That's
Yeah.
exactly
Not
what I was
all of
gonna
them.
say.
And again,
As
I'm
for
with
as
you. I
dated-
liked the movie.
there are
But there was
moments.
just some issues, some really big issues.
There are moments though, but when I watched that end roundtable and they told me Pacino, you never saw his real face the entire movie. The whole thing was computer generated. I was like, no fucking way.
See,
No,
for me,
that's
I
not
think,
possible.
maybe
Like,
I would have been able.
It was
to
too
get into
believable.
it. I would have been able to get into the movie a little bit more and have it like that 3 hours, 3.5 hours go by a little bit faster and be smoother. If every other scene, I wasn't like, what the fuck is wrong with Joe Pesci right now?
Right. Yeah, I was actually physically
took me
concerned
out.
for his
It took
health
me
there for a
out.
little while. I
Right.
was like, what the fuck is
Right.
going on?
And you talked about Scorsese not wanting to use different actors for whatever reason he gave, but you got to kind of believe that some of that's fan service, right? So
Oh, absolutely.
people who are huge fans of all three of them, and Scorsese, De Niro, and Pesci, they want to see them on film. They don't want to see someone
As much as
portraying them.
possible.
Yeah.
Right. So you gotta think that some of that is fan service, as a choice that factored in to the choice that he made as well.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
Can I interrupt? You just say,
I'd say worthwhile choice.
Sure.
Actually,
No,
I'm
a
glad
fan,
he
so.
didn't swap between some other character 20 years earlier.
I just want to know, did anybody else have to pause the movie and go get fucking ice cream in the middle of it because of hot?
I just have to pause it and go to the bathroom, man. Many times.
Joe's talking about the, Hoffa was
How
always loving the ice cream sundae.
He was not a drinker, but he was a fucking ice
No,
cream
yeah,
eater.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me as a lactose intolerant
Can
person.
I enjoy my fucking Sunday? No, I was watching with my girlfriend, and she's like, "We gotta get ice cream." And she's like, I was like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" Like, she's like, "He's eating his third fucking Sunday right now, so yeah, we're doing it."
So,
3/4 of the way through the Irishman, just
so
Whoops.
one other bizarro thing I'm not sure if you guys noticed that they did with the CGI. De Niro's eyes are blue the whole movie.
Yeah, I did.
He does not have blue eyes.
Yeah,
Hated it.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was
a
actually,
lot of people were like, "What the fuck?"
That was one of the most
He
jarring
doesn't have
parts of
blue
the CGI
eyes.
to me.
You know what they make for
Creeping
that?
me out with these blue
Fucking
eyes.
contacts.
Well, so I think they did that as a weird, bizarre way to say he's Irish,
as opposed to his
not
actual
Italian,
No,
because De Niro is obviously not Irish.
Right.
But
What's funny though, in
He's
a lot of
actually
these mob
Italian.
movies, he plays at least half Irish in almost every one of them.
I don't think Irish people can't have brown eyes.
no, they
I'm Irish.
No, it's fine. They
Mine are
can't.
hazel.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Like, what? I'm just saying, why go for this bullshit CGI that's instead
When
of
you can
using
get contacts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, man. Van Morrison sang about it. My brown-eyed girl. What the hell?
All right. So
Irish people can have brown.
before we
eyes.
get to the spoilers,
That's racist.
that is very racist.
Where are those fucking SJWs now?
Right?
Defend the Irishman,
Just
you
because
fuckers.
Van Morrison's Irish doesn't mean he's banging an Irish.
Why do you hate
I
those
doubt Van
mix so
Morrison
much?
is Irish.
Goddamn
Van
it.
Morrison is probably Dutch. Van something is
Van
probably
Morrison?
just throwing that
I
out
think
there.
he is. I think he is an Irish.
Okay,
Anyway,
all right,
I'll
go
look it up.
on.
I'll look it up.
Van Morrison.
Van something is
Yeah,
probably
I'm not
Dutch. I mean,
seeing
it's
that.
from. Van is literally from.
Are we just gonna randomly throw out Irish people that we think are?
Or,
No, we're not. We're not.
So this movie got a guy named McLovin.
No.
they should have got Conor McGregor to play that.
Right?
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Young
I
Irishman.
would have watched him for 3.5 hours for sure.
He's made a McDonald reference. That was
Yeah, I
nice.
did. As long as we're doing mix, we might as well do McDonald's, right?
Wow.
All right. So one more thing before we get into spoilers.
Oh, I thought we were there. Sorry.
No, we actually haven't. We haven't done anything spoiler yet. I mean, maybe a little here and there, but we're good.
Spoiler alert: Jimmy Hoffa's dead.
We didn't even talk about it. You fucking asshole. Last thing.
Well, we don't know that now.
Right. Show
Last
me a body.
thing I
Show
was
me a
gonna
body.
say-
Where's the
I don't
body?
believe it.
I'll take you to
the
Giant
Cowboys
Stadium.
Show me a body or I don't believe it.
Just to paint a picture, he's 5 feet away from the closest.
All right. You fucking assholes. Okay.
Odell Beckham caught a pass over his head.
I haven't seen it.
Over Hoffa's head.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Good.
New thing for a
It's buried in
Scorsese
metals,
film
right?
that we've seen in gangster movies before, but new for Scorsese. Pause frame to show the real person, like real life person's name,
Yeah, that was cool.
and how they died,
Oh yeah.
and
I
how they
did
died.
like
That
that.
is the big
Appreciate that
switch
element.
over. Is like you see this guy and you know what he is, and then you know how he's gonna die in 6 years from now, or
Yeah, it's a
whatever.
little bit of a
Yeah,
fourth wall
it
breaking
is.
thing. I like that a lot. I like
No,
that.
it was something very new that you actually you haven't seen a
graphic.
lot in American crime films at all. But for Scorsese, zero, because he always does it as a in the moment sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so it's
How
brand new
meta
for
of
him.
Very
to tell-
meta of Scorsese.
Meta.
Yeah, yes, it is. To tell how that character is going to die. It might be 20 years from now or it might be 2 years from now, but you told how they're going to die the minute they showed up on screen.
It's kind
So
of like
something-
an animal house where
Yeah.
they
Well,
did
animal.
what happened to these people
Okay.
20 years later.
Yeah.
Not how they died, but
Not,
you know,
yeah.
what they became
Sure.
after Animal House.
All right.
Right? Yeah.
So that's the end of the no spoilers. You guys want to talk about spoilers in the show?
Yeah, we can drop a few spoilers and
Okay, so I guess the way to introduce this is that Ed Sheeran, fuck.
what? Well, that ain't going away anytime soon, huh, Paul? Marguerite Rabot's doing all right, isn't she?
I think they're engaged actually.
I told them all that story while you were making copies.
Can't go 3 or 4 episodes without something like that. But anyway, so the Irishman, old man Sharon, he's telling this whole thing. And
It was fucking Scooby Doo episode.
Yeah.
It was old man Sheeran.
it was old
I
man
got away with
Sharon.
it.
If
They
it
took
wasn't
the
for
word
you
that
meddling
CGI.
fucking kids. So he's doing voiceovers the whole time, but he's also telling the story, and then it sort of cuts into it, right? And so we can start from there. This story spans multiple decades. I think from the must have been from the 40s or 50s, late 40s, early 50s, all the way into the late 80s, I think. Okay, and so it spans a really huge time frame. They have to CGI affect all these men to make them look younger or older, which is what we were whining about for the last 20 minutes.
aging.
Yeah.
Somebody
Ambiguous
knows
age.
that.
And there's a whole bunch of cameos from random people throughout
And there
mob
is.
movie history.
And there's
Sure.
also,
Kinda
if you can call them cameos,
Yep.
there's cameos to real history about JFK, about the Cuban
Yeah,
Missile
they used to
Crisis,
real footage,
about
historical
CIA's
footage,
shit. Yeah. And
What's
they used.
that line where he's like, I think he shared a girlfriend with the president.
Yeah,
Sure,
yeah.
sure.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, talking about Marilyn Monroe. Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah.
What
And
was,
so-
Or something.
what was Pesci's character's name in JFK? Because they did a call out to him as well. The guy with the eyebrows.
Oh, I don't even
It's,
remember that.
Yeah,
it's
they did.
failing me now. Ferry.
Yeah, because they talked about his eyebrows.
Yep. And it was kind of interesting because it was Pesci talking about this character who he formerly had played
He
in
played,
another
yeah.
Scorsese movie. So that was an interesting moment. Another fan service-y sort of moment.
It's probably something a lot of people wouldn't have thought.
That's right. Danny Ferry, I believe was his name.
So Sharon starts doing some. He's driving a truck, like a meat truck, a freezer truck, whatever the hell it is.
Right.
And then he starts doing some shady shit where other people will come in and steal a couple cow carcasses or whatever it is,
Skimming
and then
some beef.
skimming
Yeah.
some. And then, but by the time you get to the end of that intro scene into how he gets into this life, he shows up with a truck that had 30
Sides of
cattle
beef in it. Yep.
carcasses, and then they're all gone by the time he gets there, and he's like,
I don't know what happened.
I don't know what
you
you
saw
want
the
me to
seal.
tell
The seal was
me.
on there, right?
Yeah, right. He's like, there was
I drive
beef
the
here
truck
when I
and they
started.
loaded it.
Yeah.
I
I just
drive
drive
the truck,
the
they loaded. I couldn't tell the truck was a little light. What the fuck?
And so this introduces
I
him
love that.
into the crime life, but not in a way that he pursued it. It was just like
It just happens.
I'll do this for a few extra bucks. Everybody's like cool with it because they're all
Yeah, it gets
in on it.
bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and,
And
it
you
gets
know,
bigger and
you're
bigger.
killing
Opportunistic.
You know what part I thought that would have developed his character and made it sort of... They kind of gloss over this, but the fact that why he got comfortable with being a hitman and killing people was his experience in
In
the
the
war.
war, yeah.
But they
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
really delved into... I mean, I guess
They touched
He
on it,
gives a
but
little
not in that
exposition.
sense
Yeah,
where
it
he would have
could've-
been like desensitized to
Yeah,
it.
just a little bit more on that would have
Yeah.
done a lot for
Yeah,
his
he
character,
kind
I
of
feel like.
glosses over it by giving
Yeah.
a little exposition where he's like,
I agree with
you do what you're told and you get over it and you try to
Yeah,
get through it.
sure.
And, this
And I get that. Horror of war sort of thing.
Yeah.
Some people are suited to that, some people
He
aren't.
got out
I
of
get
the
that.
war. He was 38 to 54. Who knows how old he was.
What I got
Not
was-
even close, bro.
The movie was,
Right, that's what I'm
his,
saying. Back to the CGI trash.
His alienation from his family. From they saw what kind of shit he did.
Well, he didn't
Yeah.
try to hide it. He took his fucking daughter to the goddamn
Yeah, he
baker's
just-
shop
Yeah.
and stopped his hand out
Yeah,
like a 70-year-old man.
Well, that's what happens when you touch your kid.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, you don't bring the
But
kid
I
along
mean,
to
later
see
on,
that.
they were showing, he's telling
Yeah,
the story, and
yeah.
his daughter comes in, and she's like,
Yeah, you can-
that
you can
they
tell
were
how-
alienated because
Yes.
Oh,
Not
when she's
al-
watching it on the
alienated
TV,
is not
you're
the word.
talking about
Yeah,
that,
when
that moment
when-
where he's watching that thing on the TV and
Yes.
his daughter's on the side, and
And she's
he
watching
kind of
him
looks at her
watch it.
and he's looking at her. He knows what's happening. She knows what's happening, and then she just walks away because like
Yeah, she doesn't want to be bothered.
I don't
with
want
him.
to know about this shit. You know.
Yep, she wants nothing to do with him. Because I guess the rest of the family technically they accepted it more
Mm-hmm.
if you think about it, because they've all been around him the whole time.
Yeah.
She was the one that was like,
they're kind of
No.
more
She was-
desensitized toward it.
She was also
Yeah.
the first-hand witness to the level of
yeah,
violence.
she saw what he would
Right?
do. Yeah,
So
when
she
he
knows what he
went
was
into the
capable
shop owner and
Yes.
broke his
Well,
hand
so
and got out.
okay. Let's talk about that for a minute before we go too far. So there is that moment where he goes into the shop and he's confronting somebody that's did they steal from or
no, he pushed the guy. The shop owner pushed
Put
his
his
daughter.
hands on
Yeah,
his
Oh,
hand.
pushed his
Yeah,
daughter. Okay.
Yeah, his daughter was working there or some shit like that. or
So
there.
De Niro I'm going to air quote this, beats his ass out on the street.
American X's his hand on the curb.
Yeah, but,
American History X.
but it's
Good reference. I like that.
It's a sad reference because it's like it doesn't look right. It looks like somebody.
So bad. It looks like Robert De Niro.
What was that Christmas show that they did?
That scene is that scene is where you could have had a younger actor playing.
You got about maybe 6 centimeters on swing on that kick. Like.
Yeah, like you can tell my 94-year-old grandfather curb stomped that guy,
dude,
because there wasn't anybody else available.
It looked like he was about one fucking modicum away from breaking his hip. I mean, it was close.
It was bad.
Yeah,
it was bad.
That scene looked really bad.
It was definitely it was an
something
immersion breaking moment
exactly.
in the movie where you're like,
especially
no.
It was making its
No, he didn't just do that. In fact,
daughter was there.
no.
His whole body posture is just wrong.
Yes.
Like,
But it wasn't well done.
It was
not at
a
all.
scene that it was utilized poorly because it was supposed to be portraying this violence and raw emotion that this character has, but instead it just came across as brittle asshole.
I feel like Scorsese had to have watched that on the mini 12-inch screen he has like 18 times before he was like, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. De Niro looks great.
First of all, you got to think of what are the dynamics between them personally. Like, what if would Scorsese go up to De Niro and be like, you don't have it anymore, buddy. You're not curb stomping anybody. I don't know.
It kind of served as
and then also
gratuitous violence.
How is Scorsese looking at his own vision too?
It wasn't really necessary.
No, it looks good because this is what he envisioned.
Right.
That's probably something that they could have cut out.
He might be a little full of himself.
They could have even. I don't know if they could cut it out because it was so sort of fundamental to the relationship between the daughter and him.
You had to have it in there.
If you
could have had
CGI,
a body double.
if you had you got the CGI technology. Put
CGI
De
his fucking
Niro's
face.
face
Yeah,
on
thank
a
you.
young guy.
There you go.
It was a scene that,
Problem over.
Seriously.
You've been CGI in their
If the
faces.
CGI is that
make it
good where
realistic.
you've CGI'd 90% of it, you might as well. Just to have John Wayne's grandson curb stomp the guy.
Yeah.
Niro's face.
But this goes way back to our constant argument about the DCEU. Is how can you do all of these things correctly, or you have you have the knowledge to do this shit, and then you piss all over it. That scene right there is a perfect example. Yeah. Like again, you CGI'd his eyes blue the whole fucking time for no reason. Give him contacts. Get this other idiot. Get the key grip. Bring him in there.
Gratuitous CGI.
Yeah, CGI De Niro's head on top of that guy's body. Let him kick him a couple times and be done with it.
Yeah.
You didn't see it. Yeah. So, okay, sorry.
That's why I'm here.
Spoiler alert. De Niro looked like my grandfather kicking somebody. That's what he looked like.
It looked like an 8th grade student.
But enjoy it.
Colored some of those people, in their fucking class where they're learning how to do color editing. Like, it's bad.
All right.
Go ahead. Continue.
Moving along in the storyline, a bunch of shit happens. Sheeran becomes really good friends with Hoffa. Hoffa fucks up a whole lot. There's a lot that takes place here that is in the realm of, did that really happen, or did Sheeran tell you that when you were writing the book?
I was just about to bring up the thing about JFK, like how they kind of insinuate that this crime family organized his hit or whatever.
Yeah.
Or at least they had knowledge of what happened. It was not a shock to them.
At one point, they
kind of characterized
towards the end. He makes the threat. He's like, "We had a president whack. What the fuck do you think you're gonna do to you?"
Yeah, but when he says "we," he means the mafia in general. Because if you
all you're doing is fucking up the audio, Eric. You guys just lean in and spin your chair around a little bit.
I think when he means "we," I think he's referring to a La Cosa Nostra, not necessarily the Buffalo family.
Yeah.
But if you know anything about the Kennedys, Bobby Kennedy, his whole platform was going, being tough on organized crime, and so obviously they were at odds, which is kind of ironic because rumor is that their dad came to power.
Came up.
With
they
his
were kind of
guys,
characterizing Hoffa as a hothead, and he was just out of control. And
that too.
He had to be dealt with.
Right. He wouldn't listen.
If you were gonna pick an actor, seriously though, if you were gonna pick an actor to be like a stupid hothead that still scared you, it would be
Pacino.
It would be Pacino, right?
Yeah.
as the devil's advocate, he was the perfect fucking
Yeah.
guy for that shit because
I will say,
you believe that he was like the fucking hothead, like
he has that,
more than
he
a
has that
hothead. He's
presence.
just like
He has that presence.
passionate about everything to a fault.
It's like, even though you know that his character won't allow him to be physically violent towards these people, it's like everybody's still
OCD,
scared of, like, the whole thing with the watermelon. Like, oh, he wants some fucking water. It's like, is this guy gonna get his ass beat right now? I hate this stuff.
Yeah, no, he did a really good job with it.
Yeah,
He did.
Chino was awesome.
Didn't look like the Chino, but he was awesome.
Right. Yeah.
You know, after the film, I looked at a picture of Jimmy Hoffa. He didn't really look like Jimmy Hoffa either. It was kind of like a...
It looked
I mean,
like Pacino had bad CGI.
yeah, kind of. But it didn't take away from his performance, I don't
No,
think.
not at all. Not at all. But I also had no idea
it was
what Hoffa
believable.
looked like before this fucking
Sure.
movie.
All right, so where this culminates is that De Niro's character is essentially given the hit on Hoffa. Spoiler alert! John already did that, but he's given the
Well,
he's
he
given the
said he
hit.
died, he didn't say
He's given
how.
the hit on Hoffa, and he decides, I think, really quickly, maybe bizarrely quickly, that he's just gonna do it fine. And the
See-
weird part about that for me, looking on the outside, is like, even though he's a bizarre fucker, Hoffa has been his friend through this whole
exactly.
like
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
this
Yeah, I
whole
got that
transition
I would-
through the family.
But-
My interpretation of that whole bit was actually different because I didn't know. I guess maybe I knew less about the
Missed part.
history of the events or whatever, but I thought that he was going to maybe save his life and
Yeah.
turn, and
Yeah.
fucking it was going to be a pivoting point.
Well, no,
The movie
so
was gonna get a little bit
that's
more
my
exciting,
point.
but
I felt
Wrong.
like that's what he would have done.
I feel like that's what his character.
but
should have
instead,
done.
it was just like,
Yeah.
but June, done. Okay.
I thought they handled that a little weird because I had the same feeling. I'm like, well, how is he going to... It seemed like he wanted to intervene on Hoffa's behalf,
Yeah, he wanted
right?
to intervene
At one
and fucking
point.
save him.
But then here, on the other side, if he knew that Hoffa it was over for him...
He
it
was
a-
saving too much face for a dead man.
I don't think
Well,
that was the case. It was his friend,
clearly,
right? And he
he
didn't
didn't
want him to
want to do
suffer.
it.
He didn't want to do it, but he didn't want him to
Yeah,
suffer.
he still cared
He
about it.
put one in the head. He's gone. You know, who knows what these guys would have
He
done
made a
to him to
decision.
send a message to what happens to people who.
Well, the
go
thing was,
against
too,
crime
That's
families,
true.
right?
I
He
mean,
had
that's
to decide
okay.
between Hoffa and the family that he's been with,
Right.
too. So, yeah.
So he went with the family, but then he eliminated Hoffa in the most humane, quote unquote, way that
Quickest
somebody
way.
of this
Yeah, quick
sort
fix,
of
Yeah.
lifestyle.
Yeah, he didn't make him suffer.
Yep. So
because he figured if he didn't do it,
Somebody else
would
would
do it.
who knows
It
what
would
they're
be a
going to do
lot
to him?
worse.
Right.
I'm not sure I buy that. I mean, he was so invested in this guy that when they were, you remember when they were standing in the boardroom or whatever, and Hoffa was yelling at everybody like, "Fuck all you people, you all fucked me," and then
This is my
De Niro's
fucking
character
movie.
leaves the room. He's like,
Yeah.
"Fuck you, I'm
It
leaving
was-
this place."
it was-
and then
Yeah, you
Hoffa
ain't
comes
talking to me
out
like
and
that,
he's
yeah.
like, why'd you leave? And he's like, "You're not fucking talking to me, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've been here for you the whole time." And then he's gonna kill him.
So you're taking
10
issue with
years
his
later?
motivation, which I agree with. The method in which he did it probably is consistent,
Well, so
but the motivation, I agree with you. It's a little bit of to me, I was like, the whole time I had the same sort of sense Joe did, that
Yeah.
perhaps he's going to try to save Hoffa, or, intervene somehow.
Especially with the people that they picked to be like in that scene
Well,
with
we
them
all-
kind of like unknown, greasy motherfuckers
Well, so-
that were rubbing
We all
them the
know.
wrong way.
this
Did
this
not get
probably
saved.
it probably aligns
So-
with the main
That's true.
complaint for this movie, not critic complaint, but historical complaint, was that there is no way that Sheeran killed Hoffa. Just no way. Not forget about timing, forget about motive. Just it couldn't have happened.
Why?
It couldn't have been him that did it.
Why?
Why?
Because he didn't have the right opportunity, he wasn't in the right place at the right time. This just arguments for Sheeran's story that he told after he was dead.
Mhm.
But people say there's no way. There's
So it's
no
like he
way.
was covering for somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
That could be too.
And so if
That
you
could be
watch
very
this
true.
story with that knowledge, like that, there's like a 1% chance his telling of the events could actually be true.
Yeah.
And then you would say to yourself, yeah, they're probably not true. And if you watch it as a telling of his events, then
Yeah.
it's like, okay, that cannot be true, and it's still okay for the story
Yeah,
because
to me that
it's
doesn't diminish
historic.
the value of the film.
Yeah.
That's kinda
we've been
what
talking
he
about
did.
JFK. Obviously, the events that happened in JFK were not exactly how things went down. think we could all probably agree to that. But it didn't make it any less of a compelling story. But I appreciate what you're saying. And
It's
I
like
didn't do
throwing
that
it
research
out
afterwards to
open
see where with
and
the
making
alignment.
you think about it and make your own decision
Sure.
for what happened.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, do I buy this or don't I buy this?
Right.
You know.
Yeah, we're at 41. You good? What do you got? Anything?
No, I was gonna round robin it if we're good.
And then end it.
You know what else? Can I make one more observation?
Go ahead.
All the
Versus
observations you want.
versus what previous Scorsese movies. What one weak point that we haven't touched on about this film, the soundtrack was kind of lacking.
The soundtrack
Okay,
is- yeah,
that's
it's
fair.
You think
That's
about
very fair.
if you think
actually.
about Goodfellas or Casino,
Well, that's-
they all kind of have kind of iconic soundtracks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
This did
Scores.
not.
Well, I just really feel like he missed his mark on, keeping you immersed in this world. Like, there's so many things that just constantly were detracting from, like, me focusing on these characters and the
Yeah.
stories. Like, I wanted to like the movie really bad. And I enjoyed it, like, to a certain degree.
Right,
the
right.
violence was executed perfectly, like, as surprising, quick.
No pun
brutal.
intended.
And then, very true, I did not intend that.
There you go.
But it was just. I feel like it was a little bit of a miss, and maybe he's losing a little bit of his charm.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen. Again, like,
Hey,
You
you
got
have
a guy
a career
who's-
like this, you get to make a dud.
That's true.
yeah.
Hey,
And I wouldn't even go as far as
it's
calling
pretty
it
hard
dud.
to
Yeah, it's
follow
nowhere
up.
near a dud.
It's
but
pretty hard to follow up greatness
Soft dud?
with more greatness.
Well,
Because
Joe, we're
it's
allowed
the
to
hardest
disagree.
thing in the
You know
world.
me.
Dude was
as
swinging
brothers,
for,
we
yeah,
disagree.
he
all
was
the
swinging
time.
for the fences, and he had a triple. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not.
sure.
He
Yeah.
still didn't do that bad. I mean,
No,
the
okay,
movie
fair
was
enough,
good.
fair
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just like
Smacker, but not.
It was
all.
good, but it had its weakness.
right.
Yeah.
You saw what he was going for, and you're like,
You fell a little short.
Oh,
of the
there's
mark.
no way
And
I
what-
could ever make a movie anywhere close to it.
right,
So
yeah, and then you get the
fuck
hype. You get the hype behind it, where they're touting it as what he was going for, and then you gotta be like, nah,
There's a
you
little
guys
bit
are
of a
kind of
letdown there,
yeah, you guys are kind of like blowing smoke up his ass a little bit. Don't do it. Or the next one will be even more fucked up.
Right.
Don't
Right.
let him do his thing.
I know.
We'll see.
Every so often, you get somebody with that level of success in a certain medium, they're going to have that sort of vanity project where they
Yeah.
do things they want to do. If you're a video game fan, if you've played The Last Stranding, it's the sort of same thing with Kojima, right? He developed this game based on the sort of credit and goodwill he built up by so much previous success, and he made some choices that were probably for his own enjoyment,
Sure.
rather what would be commercially successful. So I appreciate that. Does that, me as a moviegoer, does that mean that I have to not critique these things? No, I'm going to still say whether or not I like or
Yeah.
enjoy some of the choices that he made.
Yeah, I think overall it was good. It wasn't quite what he was going for, but it was good. I enjoyed it.
Just out of curiosity, what are your favorite Scorsese films? Like, what's your favorite?
I don't know.
Mine
Good,
personally,
I
Casino's mine.
I guess Goodfellas, right? Yeah. I guess actually, that's got to be. I grew up with that one.
Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Goodfellas and Casino.
I'd go,
Yeah, Casino's
I'd go
really good.
Goodfellas too, but
Yeah.
Casino's close.
Yeah.
I just feel like I've seen Casino. I saw that one first, so maybe that's why.
But there's no question that Scorsese knows how to do an American crime drama film
Yeah. Sure.
better than anybody.
Painting
probably.
in his own palette, right? That's,
Yes,
kind of what he's
yeah,
good at.
exactly.
It's kind of like a rock band that goes along and does stuff for the fans until they've reached the point where they feel like they have artistic license to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
But they still use
And
elements
then when you
of
hit
what
a certain point and you're
got
like,
them there, right?
you get to
They're
the
still gonna
Motley
get
Crue
called
Def
out.
Leppard tour, where you're like, you guys might want to slow down a little bit.
Sure.
It's like
Oh, yeah.
when Zeppelin did Coda,
There's only so many times Kiss can do a
okay,
farewell
well, you can't
tour.
do physical graffiti again.
Right.
You got to do
There's
something
no
else.
right.
You gotta move on.
That's why they have the makeup.
All right. So did you do the recommendation round robin?
No, you walked away. See, he
I'm
wanted
sorry.
to do that round robin because he had to pee.
Yeah.
He forgets, like, because when there's only 2 of us here, we got to pause it, do whatever. But when there's like 3 of us, we're okay. Now there's like 20 of us, we're fine. By the time you could have taken a shit and come back, we'll be like,
It takes a village sometimes, Eric.
It was like 90 seconds. Okay, so,
All right, so again,
Take
round
a
robin.
take a
What
shit.
your thoughts
all
are?
things considered, runtime, Scorsese elements, actors, everything. Would you recommend it? with somebody else?
I think it's a complex question based on whether or not you're a Scorsese.
Welcome to
film.
What If Zach.
Here, look.
We're gonna.
I'm sorry.
Hold on.
Yes or no?
I'm just teasing
I'm
you.
gonna I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna help you because I hated trying to watch it all the way through, but I saw somebody post a thing about you can watch this as a mini series
Sure.
if you do it in 3 or 4 episodes. I thought that is the best way to watch this movie because then you're not time constrained and feeling like you're lulled down to the lowest point of your life while you're watching the car
You know, it's
trip.
funny, Eric,
and-
that you mentioned
Holy
this.
shit! I wasn't gonna go that far with it, but
Right?
okay. Yeah.
Well, no,
It's funny you mention
I'm
this 'cause-
exaggerating a little, but that is kind of how it feels like.
I've been through 2 divorces, and this movie didn't come anywhere near those. Holy shit!
It's funny because I read an article
guess it's
that
where your
insinuated the
lowest
exact
point
opposite.
is, right? You know,
Oh,
what's
really?
your-
Yeah, it said do
What's
not
your
watch this in
threshold?
multiple sessions.
Good life.
No, I would.
But I can't remember any salient points from the article.
Yeah,
so I'm
I
gonna
would-
think that you're probably.
I would strongly
correct.
recommend if you could watch this in 2 to 4 sittings. I
Yeah.
think that's the way to do it because you need to have those cliffhanger moments set up for you because they're not set up for you in the film where you're like,
All right.
Okay, this
oh,
is-
I gotta take a break now because then you're gonna watch through it and then it's over in 6 seconds.
Sure. That doesn't help me with where I was going with it. I was going with
We need to get
whether or
him a
not.
towel. What the fuck was that?
all right, here's
Listen,
my,
I'm trying to.
If you're a Scorsese
I'm trying
fan,
to audibly help
Oh, fuck
fucking
that.
people
Not
that are
even if
watching
you're a
this.
Scorsese
For
fan.
Christ's
If
sake.
you're a fan of American filmmaking, he's a legend. Give it a try. The worst that happens is you get a nice nap. Like,
Not exactly what I'm going for.
it's either
I try to be
it's
nice
either-
about
it's-
it. I
it's-
try to
no,
chop it
it's a
up.
very
And,
it's a divisive movie. Either you can fucking stick with it.
I like
and
how he
hang,
took it
or-
all the way back to the 3.5 hours or 5 seconds, depending on
Yeah.
Either
if you
you're
sleep
gonna
right
like
through
it
it.
or you're not gonna like it.
Let's
Like,
give it a listen.
I think that he warrants giving it a try. His
Yeah.
track record
Yeah.
really does. If you don't like it, you don't have to fucking finish
or
it.
if you just turn it off.
There was 3 or 4 times where me and my fucking girlfriend looked at each other and were like, "Are we turning this off right now, or do you want to watch something else?" Like, I'm giving you an out, and we're like, "We're gonna stick with it because I'm in it for Jimmy Hoffa eating ice cream."
It's
really.
like I don't want to start this thing over again and go through this 3.5 hours again.
Yeah.
well, you don't
So
start it
let's
from the
stick with
beginning.
it.
You don't start from the beginning every time.
Yeah. I can recommend it, especially if you're a Scorsese fan and you enjoyed his previous work. I think it has enough of those things that you liked about those previous movies that you'll
Keeps
find
going.
something that you'll enjoy about the movie.
totally
Alright,
concur. He's a genius on the American crime drama shit. You should watch it, but you might want to watch it over 2 sittings. That's
back
all I'll
and-
say.
Back and forth between compelling violence and train wreck.
At
of
least 2
CGI.
settings.
All right, time out. We're not going to round robin. Everybody's round robin talk. Okay, Eric's done. Walt, you go.
I just
We're never
saying,
going to get through
Do
this
you
shit.
recommend it?
Yes, I would recommend watching it. It's worth a watch.
There you go. Cool.
Like I said, try it. If you fall asleep, there's your answer.
Try
got
it
it
again
now.
once.
Yeah.
No, try it.
If you
fucking
fall
once.
asleep again,
I would do
If
it
you
in
can't
2
make it to the
sessions at
first
least.
Jimmy Hoffa ice cream scene, it's not for you.
Yeah, and I think I just end it with I think if you grew up enjoying all the mobster movies that we talked about, Godfather, Goodfellas, Once Upon a Time, and Brooklyn, Bronx Tale, all that shit, right? You'll like it. Yeah, it does run slow. Be ready for it.
It's full of old
Yeah.
men.
Hey,
It has-
yeah.
it has
Eat dinner
sudden-
while you're watching the movie.
It has sudden impact action though when it does.
Yeah. Yep.
It's like you're like about ready to fall asleep. All of a sudden, boom! Whoa! What just happened here? You know.
Yeah, by the time you get done writing that note, we're there already. You can't read. So anyway, yeah, I guess we can cut out the middle part and we can just explain to them what the hell it is. All right, so the end result is, yeah, we suggest you give it a shot, try it, and comment. And let us know if you like it. Hit us up on our website and tell us what you think when you read about the Irishman, because you know Eric's going to drop a whole bunch of shit on it now.
Right.
So, all right, now here's going to be one of the breaks. And what we normally do is, any of you guys actually listen to anything we say or any of our podcasts?
No, but
Normal?
I'm a frequent podcast listener. I do I do webinars all the time. For
What we
work.
do, we got a little game, and I'll explain it to you later. Not a game, but we got this little bit that we do at the end that we started a while ago. I'll explain it later. But basically, we just kind of do like, every one of us goes good night somebody. It started out with something.
Good night, John Boy. Good
Yeah,
night, that sort of
It
thing.
started.
Okay.
It started like that.
Gotcha.
It started in that vein, but it started. Well, I can say it now. It was just me and Paul before Eric got here, and we were like 30, 40 episodes in, or not even. And my brother-in-law.
I joined
listens.
at 20, brother.
Okay, so sorry. Sorry. All right, we were a few episodes in, and I realized that my brother-in-law listened. So I was like, hey, we got a fan. He's like, I think my mom's the only one that listens. So we were joking around about that.
Spoiler.
She doesn't, yeah. So I ended that episode with, all right, good night, Tony, as a joke. And then he said, good night, Mom. And then it just became a thing that the next few episodes we did, good night, Tony, good night, Mom. And then he started changing it up. And then Eric got here, and he didn't realize what the fuck we did the first time.
Gotcha.
And then we explained it to him. So then it just became this thing that all three of us do. I always say goodnight, Tony, and then they just come up with some random dumb
Good
shit.
night, John Boy.
Yeah, pretty much. There you go. Quite fitting. All right, so that's what we'll do. So I'll do my outro, and then we'll drop into that.
Good night, anybody.
Yeah, whatever the fuck you pick.
Spike! Sorry.
Thanks. You know what?
I'm doing it to help you.
Yeah, I see.
Look, you have a
friends
marker
like you,
now.
I don't need enemas.
You don't need enemas.
Yeah. You pain in my ass. All right. So, all right, and we're back. All right, so that's all they're gonna hear is Spike, or they're gonna not hear the Spike. They're just gonna hear, I don't need enemies. Yeah. All right, so let us know what you think of The Irishman. Hit us up on whatifgeeks.com, whatifgeeks@gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, telephone, somebody, phone a friend. I don't give a shit what you do. But talk to us. Let us know what you think. Good night, Tony.
Good night, Danny Carey.
Good night, De Niro's blue eyes.
Good night, John Boy.
Good night, Mr. Hoffa.
Nothing? Paul's like, fuck it.
Good night, sweet
I
prince.
wasn't even here.